Welcome, everyone. I'm Michael fucking Rainey, and a lot of people send me messages. I think the most common message that I get is about questions regarding how I managed to give up alcohol, pills, coke, all that shit. And it's hard for me sometimes to put together a as thoughtful of an answer to people's messages as I like to. So I thought it might be best to make a video detailing as many different aspects of that recovery process as possible for everyone who this applies to. Basically, I had a motherfucker of a time giving up alcohol, giving up prescription painkillers, giving up coke, and they came at various stages. It wasn't like I just had like a massive party phase or anything like that. First, it was fucking alcohol. And in 1990, I guess like 94, 95, I started drinking. And that was a way for me to kind of, socialize. That was as good of a social lubricant as I could have asked for because I really had a tough time with social anxiety. I had a tough time being myself. And honestly, I had no fucking idea who I was. So alcohol was the cure-all for that. And I realized quickly that when I drank, the more appealing I seemed to be to my friends, the more appealing I seemed to be to people, and the more at ease I was in any setting. Whereas without alcohol, I was a fucking train wreck. I basically stuck to myself, even to this day, like not drinking. I think it's been 8 years since I last drank. I'm most comfortable being by myself or at most in a one-to-one conversational setting. If I'm not in those kind of settings, I'm really uncomfortable, whether it's in a social setting, even on fucking podcasts. If I do a podcast where there's 3-4 other people, I might as well not even be there because I'm profoundly uncomfortable and I'm probably just counting down the minutes to when I think it's probably going to be over. It's a fucked up way to live, but I can assure you it's a much easier way to live than using drugs or alcohol to try to ingratiate myself to people and situations. So my background is that going back to like drinking, it became easy for me to interact with people once I started drinking. And for a while, all I did was drink. Had a brief weed phase, but I never liked weed just because it made me feel even more anxious than I was initially. So I never really took to that. And I drank almost every day from like 96 until about 2012. So that's 16 years of almost daily drinking. And I love to drink. I aside from being the social lubricant that it was, I just love to fucking drink, man. I love the taste of it. I love going to the liquor store. Like when you go in a liquor store and you get hit with that fucking liquor store smell, God, I love that shit. I love sitting in bars. I loved wasting away fucking hours just sitting in bars. I've never smoked a cigarette, but I used to love smelling cigarettes in fucking bars. It just really made me feel at ease. So alcohol was a massive part of my existence for those 16 years. As comforting as it seemed, the older I got, the more the repercussions for my drinking became apparent. Most apparent, the most glaring aspect of that came in regards to like my relationship with my wife and my family. If it wasn't for my wife, I would have never got my shit together. So I owe everything to her. But she was the only person willing to call me out on how fucked up my behavior was. And I fought her tooth and nail over it. But without her, I wouldn't be where I am today, which is truly grateful for everything I have. And I would have never conceived that I would be able to go from where I was at to where I'm at now. But it's all entirely attributable to her and to the work I put in to just unfucking myself and just becoming the person that I wanted to be. Now, drinking for 16 years was one thing, but in about 2006, I got into coke. Somebody took it out one time at a place where I was hanging out, and I was like, fuck it, I'll try it. And I think I was like 27, which, as far as I'm concerned, is pretty late for trying coke, but as soon as I tried it, it was like a flip switched in my fucking head. I could not fucking get enough of it. And I remember the night that I started doing it like it was fucking yesterday. I was in my buddy's attic apartment. Yeah, attic apartment. Unreal. I was in my buddy's attic apartment, and there were 4 of us. And I tried it, and I sat down, and I started having a conversation with my buddy Danny. And I felt like everything just became easier. Even though these were friends that I've been buddies with for a long time, conversation seemed so much easier. This feeling of euphoria comes over me. And I just felt like, oh my God, this is fucking heaven. And I just want more of it. There was enough of it to probably last about 4 or 5 hours. And after that, this is the very first time I'm doing coke, by the way. After that, when it became apparent that there was no more left on the fucking table that it was on, I'm literally crawling around on the floor looking for bits and pieces, because every now and again, like, you know, a small rock might fall out of somebody's nose, or you tap the dollar bill and it drops out of there. So day fucking one, I'm crawling around looking for this shit. I didn't know it was bad then. I just knew that I liked it a lot. And naturally, like anybody who gets into drugs, you think you can control it until you can't fucking control it. And in a short amount of time, coke really took a hold of every fucking thing that I was doing. And drinking was kind of like the underlying issue through all of this. I rarely did coke without drinking. There were times that I did coke without drinking, but that was only because I was trying to make my wife think that, you know, I was sober when I really wasn't, because historically I had always paired drinking with coke. So if you didn't smell alcohol on me, like, why, how could I be doing coke? That was my thinking. But by and large, 99% of the time, drinking always led to coke. And after 2 fucking beers, I would say, the wheels would start turning, and I would start thinking about who I could call that might be able to get it, who had it, where I would be able to go to get it. And it was chaos. Up until that point, just drinking never felt like chaos. It would be crazy nights, and then, you know, you'd wake up with a fucking hangover and think like, fuck, that was crazy. But I'm in my 20s, so none of this shit really seemed that out of the ordinary to me until I started doing coke. And once I started doing coke, man, it was just fucking game on with everything. And initially, it was doing it once every couple weekends, and then it was every fucking weekend. And then it was, all right, weekends become longer, so now I'm incorporating Thursdays into it. And then it's to the point where I'm fucking doing coke on weeknights, and it's just fucking chaos. Now, at the time, I had a lot going on in my life that would lead the average person to believe that, you know, I'm walking the straight and narrow. I got a wife and a kid at home. My wife is summer 2006. My wife is 7 months pregnant. We're about to have another baby, and my cocaine use is just out of fucking control. I left work one night. I got done working at 11 p.m. and I went straight to my buddy's house, and we were able to get some coke, and I stayed up all night doing coke. And the next day, I just had a fucking come down that was worse than any that I had ever had before, because it just, I would feel so depleted mentally after finishing doing coke that it would be to the point of oftentimes of feeling suicidal. And this particular morning, I went home. You know, my wife had been calling, like wondering where the fuck I was all night, even though I know deep down she knew exactly where the fuck I was. And when I finally came home, I was just spent. And she justifiably just read me the riot act and told me what a fucking loser I was and just how fucked up the situation was, which is exactly what I needed to hear. So at that point, I knew that I had to try something different. So I called my dad, or my wife might have called my dad. One of us called my dad, and my dad came over, and he wasn't sure what to do. So he called the police, and they were actually very helpful, and they were just like, look, if you want to go here, these are different options that you have. And I ended up that morning getting into a rehab, and which is almost like unheard of now. This was right before the opioid crisis, so it was a lot easier to get into a rehab when you actually needed it. And I didn't have insurance, I didn't have money, but thankfully the county ended up paying for 17 days. So I was able to stay at this rehab for 17 days. And this was the first time, this is 2006, this is about 12 years after I first started drinking, that it was apparent that what I was doing was incredibly fucked up. So I felt like I really got a lot out of rehab. There for 17 days, I was really committed to it. I understood just how fucked up the situation was once I was in rehab. The first day there, I think I got there around like noon, the day that my bender ended, and I got to rehab, and I just immediately went to sleep. I was just fucking spent. And I woke up late that night at rehab, and I'm walking around just trying to get the lay of the place. And it's gradually dawning on me just how fucked up this situation was. So this is the first time where I truly felt like I was committed to turning myself around and being who I needed to be, not only for myself, but more importantly, for my family, because times were tight. I really needed to be there. My wife deserved somebody to be there because she was pregnant, and I already had a daughter. It was a colossal clusterfuck. And I got a lot out of rehab. And once I got out, I was committed to being sober, to walking the straight and narrow. And within about 2 months, we were so poor that like me missing work for close to 3 weeks was just devastating financially. So within about 2 months, we had to move back in with my parents. And as big of a loser as I felt going into fucking rehab, it was just even worse at this point, because when you're fucking, I don't know, 27 and moving your family into your parents' house, that's another level of fucked up that I hadn't experienced yet. And it was apparent just how bad this situation was. However, that did not stop the wheels from fucking turning, because within a month of being back at my parents' house, I'm like, all right, maybe I can just drink. That was always the precursor for where the wheels would start to fucking fall off. And when I start thinking like, all right, maybe I can just fucking drink, that's inevitably going to lead to fucking coke. And when it leads to coke, then, you know, everything just falls to fucking shit. So at this point, things could not seem any worse, yet I'm determined to start fucking drinking again. And naturally, I went out, I started drinking again, and inevitably, I end up going out on fucking coke benders. And everything is gradually, like, you think you've hit rock bottom, but the rock bottom becomes even deeper with every fucked up decision I made. And eventually, we were able to move out into an apartment, and that was just, things did not get any better at all. I felt like I was moving up in the world because I was able to finally get an apartment after a few months with my parents. But I'm still doing all the same bullshit that I did before, which is going out drinking, fucking going out doing coke. You know, I got a corner bar up the street, which I love to go to. And naturally, there's no shortage of people with fucking blow there or people selling it. There was a resident coke dealer, very nice lady named Marie. That did not help at all. And I was progressively getting worse in every possible way, with fucking drinking, with coke, with just being a fucking loser. Everything was going to shit. My finances were becoming worse and worse and worse. And just every box that could have been checked off, displaying a fucking neon sign that was flashing what a loser I was, could not have been any fucking brighter. Yet it still wasn't enough to get me to modify my behavior to be what I wanted to be at that point. So I go through all this fucking, I'm still doing the same dumb shit, doing even worse shit than before. And then eventually we end up losing that apartment and then moving back in with my wife's grandfather. And again, it's new rock bottom after new rock bottom. Things are just getting worse and worse and worse. We get a new place again. Now we have our own place. I'm like, oh, fuck. Yeah, I can still keep doing all the dumb shit I was doing before. And that doesn't work out, because, you know, I'm just continuously getting worse. Now, I consider going back to rehab, but I didn't, and it was like an informed decision. It wasn't just like, yeah, I'm afraid of what they're going to tell me. It's like, I knew exactly what they were going to tell me, and I had all the tools from rehab. I went to a really good rehab. It was Mearmont in, I think it's Lima, Pennsylvania. Everything I could have possibly needed to know to be successful with being sober, they gave me. But even at that time, I'm still doing fucked up shit. And it's like, you know, I'm drinking, I'm doing coke. And then one night I go out on a bender and I end up smoking crack, which is like completely fucking insane. There's no point in my life where where I would have thought like, yeah, that would be something that I would do. But inevitably, as you get further and further into this shit, the things that you're willing to do to compromise your integrity to feed your addiction just grow exponentially. That was so fucking bad that I was like, okay, I'm going to make another honest effort at getting sober. And this was the end of May 2012. By the third week or so in June, I had started working a new part-time job, which is like a UPS type job where you're like fucking shipping packages and shit like that. And after a couple weeks of working there, my leg felt like it was on fucking fire. And I had no idea what was wrong. And day by day, it got worse until I finally went to a doctor. And he's like, oh, yeah, you have 2 ruptured discs in your back. And I was in legitimately so much pain that, like, I probably needed painkillers just to tide me over to figure out what was the next step. And I started taking painkillers. I'd fucked with them a little bit before, but never really took to them. But now that I'd given up alcohol and coke a few weeks prior, I was 100% committed to giving up everything. And then I fucking got hurt. And as soon as I started getting a prescription for Percocet, I was off to the fucking races again, and I was just in heaven with these fucking things. I ended up having 2 back surgeries that summer, so it was essentially a fucking blank check for painkillers. And for the next 3 years, I got them every fucking month. I would be waiting in the parking lot of my doctor's office because I knew around what time they would typically call me to pick up my prescription on what day. I knew if I called the day before, they would have it the next day, and they would typically have it between 12 and 1 because that's when the doctor would take his lunch. So I would drive to this fucking hospital. I would drive to Crozier Hospital in Chester. I would sit in the parking lot like a fucking degenerate and just wait during that time period. All the while I'm on the clock at work, mind you, and just waiting for them to call and just make it seem like, oh, well, I'm actually in the area. So, yeah, I could just stop by right now. And I would fucking jetpack up to that doctor's office to get my prescription. And it was always fucked up because you would have to sign out your prescription and you'd see this fucking laundry list of fucking names of people picking up prescriptions and what they were fucking picking up. So it's like the magnitude of just how big the opioid crisis was getting was apparent just in that. And I would just take these things and I would get fucked up at work, man. And I just at this point, I just love fucking painkillers so much, in part because like I was getting pretty good painkillers, pretty strong ones. And then also because I no longer had the other crutches that I had loved so much and that I relied upon so much for so many years, which were alcohol and cocaine. And for the next 3 years, life was just a fucking nightmare, man. Truth be told, I had a pretty good time on painkillers. I know it was fucking hell for my wife, and I was completely distant from my kids. And, you know, every now and again I would get fucked up and, you know, I think I was doing a killer job, where in hindsight, I can't imagine how much of a fucking mess I was in front of everybody. And I would just isolate myself. I would hang out in my back room at home, and I would just listen to vinyl. I would watch documentaries. I just wanted to fucking be alone. I just wanted to take pills and be alone. And my game was that I would keep a certain percentage of the painkillers I got each month, and I would sell the rest in the hopes that, like, okay, like I'm going to make money off of this, and this is going to be a positive. But inevitably, after I sold the rest, I would just end up and plow through whatever ones I kept. I would just end up buying more to fucking feed my addiction. So it's like every month I'm losing painkillers, even though I'm getting anywhere between 120 and 180 pills a month. It was complete fucking chaos, man. So this shit, it's just getting worse by the fucking day. And this continued for almost 3 years, where every day just revolved around doing pills, getting more pills. And if you've ever become addicted to pills or anything adjacent to that, you know that it's a full-time fucking job. Even though the whole time I'm working while doing this shit, obtaining pills is a full-time fucking job. It's a never-ending series of fucking phone calls, of walking to fucking weird places, driving to the fucking middle of nowhere, depending on the most undependable people on the fucking planet to get what you want. And sometimes it pans out, sometimes it doesn't. So it's like every day is a fucking sprint to get what you need, and every day the next day you're gonna start the same fucking process over again. So it's total fucking chaos. At that point, eventually I end up giving up pills. In 2015, I ended up giving up pills cold turkey. And it sucked for a few weeks, but thankfully after that, I just didn't want them in the same way that I missed alcohol and cocaine. There was a brief time where I ended up trying to get pills, and I ended up getting Suboxone. So I took that for a fucking weekend, got fucked up, and then realized, like, I just don't want it anymore. And I wish I could give you like this, this detailed fucking speech on what you can do to give up pills and, how I fucking kicked it. But the reality was, after 3 years, like, I was just done with that shit. So I don't feel like I struggled with that as much as I've struggled with cocaine and alcohol, because those things, even to this day, like, there's times where I think a brief glimpse where I'll be like, oh man, a beer would taste great, or man, I fucking miss Coke so much. So that shit, there's always got to be fine tuning, because those thoughts still do pop in my head for those two fucking things. And it wasn't until 2017. Now, during this time from 2012 to 2017, I would occasionally have benders with mostly cocaine. I'm sorry, mostly alcohol. Occasionally cocaine, and during that time period, I'm still on fucking painkillers. So there's a lot going into my system at one time. However, I was making an honest effort at not drinking and not taking coke anymore. Now, I would have a bender maybe every 2-3 months, and it would feel like I'm starting back at zero each time, and it would feel devastating. But the reality is, in hindsight, that shit was progress. To go from drinking every day to just drinking every 2-3 months was nothing short of a fucking miracle. So in 2017, I ended up going on a bender, which was alcohol and cocaine. And at the time, like, I had a cool creative project going on. I was working on a show with my buddies, with Tim Butterly, John McKeever, and Tommy Pope on a Comedy Central pilot called Delco Proper. And it was the one of the first times where, like, I felt like, oh man, I might have an opportunity to truly do what I wanted to do, which was to do something in comedy with people that I really love and admire. And I went out drinking and doing coke the night before we were supposed to do a radio appearance together. And I was so fucked up. We're hours away. The radio appearance was supposed to be at like 7 or 8 in the morning. And I'm up all fucking night. I'm going from bar to bar. I end up at a fucking casino. And it's one of these nights where, like, drugs are just raining from the fucking sky. I ended up meeting a couple people who were dealers. And it was the worst possible thing for me, but I took advantage of it. And I ended up with more coke in my pocket than I had ever had at any point on this particular night. It was insane. And it got to the next morning where I'm supposed to go on the radio show with all the other guys. And as fucked up as I am, I get in my car and I drive to the radio station. Was in Ballackinwood, PA. And it was, I was sitting in the parking lot and I'm debating whether or not I should go up, because there's still a part of me which realizes, like, all right, maybe you shouldn't do this. Thank God I didn't, because I would have thoroughly embarrassed myself. And I ended up just saying, fuck it. I ended up driving back to Delco. I got a motel room by myself, and it was this fucked up motel, which I don't know that is there anymore, but it was on Baltimore Pike. And if you know anything about Baltimore Pike hotels in Delco, nobody goes there for any good reason. I checked in. I paid cash. I think it was like maybe like $80 to fucking check in. And when I got in there, I opened the bag that I had, which was a fresh 8-ball. And I dumped a little bit out in the sink. I did a little bit, and then I went and sat down on the bed. And I just remember thinking, this is a place where I'm going to die. And even though I'm still fucked up, and even though I have a fucking ton of drugs, it's becoming like all the fucking things that I had suppressed from the night before, the obligations that I had ignored, all the promises that I had broken, started bubbling to the surface. And one of those promises was that I had called my kids and I had told them that I was coming home to bring home pizza to everybody for dinner. I never fucking made it home. So I completely shit the bed with my promise to my kids. So I feel worse than I've ever fucking felt for hurting them. And at that point, I ended up dumping the rest of my 8-ball down the fucking drain. And I couldn't believe I was doing it, because I had never done that before with drugs. If I had drugs, I was doing them until they were gone. There was no saving it till tomorrow. Like, I see guys that would like take out bags from like the weekend prior, and it was just unfathomable to save coke for a later date. It was, I'm going to do all of this, and then I'm going to be the most annoying motherfucker on the planet, calling everybody I could possibly call to get more, calling people to lend me money to get more, and just being a bother to everybody in my life that I think would support this fucked up thing that I was doing. So I'm in the hotel room, and I ended up dumping all this coke out, and I called my wife, and, you know, she knew what was up. And I was going full on fucking pity mode, saying, I need you to come stay with me here. I fucked up. And she was just like, fuck that, man. You're on your own. Which I was surprised that she took that route, even though she had busted my balls about it before, justifiably so. But this was the first time where I felt like things were just different. You know, the games were over. This was different because we're so far into the game at this point. This is 2017, so I think I'm like 39 years old. Incredibly fucked up situation. She's like, fuck that. I got work. I'm not fucking babysitting you. And I ended up going home. And a few hours later, my kids got home from school. 2 of my 3 kids seemed happy to see me. But then my oldest, she just looked at me differently than she had ever looked at me before. And at that point, like, again, like I talked about, like new rock bottoms, like that was like the ultimate rock bottom. Like being viewed by one of your kids as a fucking loser. After that, I think that night or the next day I ended up going to a 12-step meeting. And I can't recommend them enough to people. I know it's not a one-size-fits-all, but I can tell you that for me, it worked and was exactly what I needed. There are other programs out there that are accessible and that are free. There was one that I found out about recently, which seems really good, and one that I would like to find out about more. It's called Smart Recovery. It's meeting based too. Then there's also there's tons of work that you have to put into it to try to get to the underlying issue as to what your issues are. It's definitely worth checking out. I want to check it out more just to find out more about it because it does seem like something that could benefit a lot of people. So consider that. But for me, AA and NA, more so AA than anything else, was the route to go, in large part because it was so easily accessible, and now you could do it over fucking Zoom if you want to. And at the very least, it was something constructive to do every day, because now it's like with no drugs or alcohol to be relied upon as a crutch, I now have all this free time and all these fucking thoughts, and still sifting through the ashes of just letting down so many fucking people. I needed something that I could do every fucking day, which would provide some structure to help get me on the right track. And with AA, not only having something to look forward to every day and go to every day was massive for me, but the step work was vital into getting to the underlying issue of what was fucking me up. So to summarize up to this point, I think if you're struggling with drug or alcohol addiction, I think start by looking into a program like a 12-step program or something like Smart Recovery. There's others out there. I know there's some people. There's a book by a guy named Alan Carr that a lot of people have benefited from. I think it's just called Quit Drinking. And some people I know swear by it. So check that out too. But I'm just laying out options. I'm not telling you what to do. More importantly, I'm just telling you what worked for me. And AA was where it was at. But the most important issue is that if you're dealing with any kind of drug or alcohol addiction, which seems like it's completely out of control, is to take some kind of action on improving your life. Because I guess some people can white knuckle it. I'm not one of those fucking people. Anytime I would try to white knuckle it, I could maybe last a few months before I went off the fucking rails again. And granted, it was progress, but I just didn't feel like being back at square one every couple months. So with AA, that was definitive action that I could take as to where not only do I want to build myself up, but I want to show that I can be reliable and show that I'm taking action in trying to unfuck myself and to not be a loser forever. AA provided that for me, and I went to an AA meeting just about every day for an entire year, and I can't say enough good things about it. I know people get hung up on the spirituality aspect of it and the mention of God so often throughout the big book and the 12 steps. And I did too for a little bit. There was, when you get into the steps, there's reference to him and the higher power. And I would get jammed up on that shit initially. I don't know if that was me just trying to find, one chink in the armor to fucking tell me like, fuck this, I'm out. Could have possibly been. And also it was like I think there was some legitimacy to just not buying into the Christianity aspect of it. But somebody who had been at AA for a while that I had spoken to said that a way that you could work the steps without taking on the God angle was to view the higher power as the highest version of yourself, like the idealized version of yourself. So that's what I ended up going with, because there were, I wasn't the man I wanted to be. There were so many aspects of my personality where I just felt like I was so deficient and that I had so much more room for improvement. So for me, my higher power was my idealized self, which I feel like right now I am. I still have a ton of room for improvement, but right now, back in 2017, I could have not imagined the version of myself that I am now. Like it's hard to think about there's big wins that have stacked up, and then there's also little ones that have stacked up. And for me, I wanted to become that idealized version of myself, and I knew that it would take, there were a lot of different ways that I was going to have to go about that. And some of the biggest ones were that I knew I had to take stock of who, what, and where was consuming my time. That's one of the most difficult aspects of recovery, because you're going to have some very difficult conversations with people. You're going to have to ignore certain people. People are going to be pissed. People are going to play the fucking pity card. And these are oftentimes going to be people that you've been friends with for fucking years and decades. But guess what? If being around them historically has led you to contributing to fucked up decisions, because ultimately you're the one making the decisions. But if being around certain people, places, or things are contributing to you making fucked up decisions, get rid of them and get rid of that thing. It's not worth it. And anybody that truly cares about and loves you will understand if you say, look, man, I love you, but we tend to get in a lot of fucking trouble when we're hanging out together. So right now I got to stay away from you. If somebody truly loves you, they'll respect that. If not, then I think you know whether or not they're a friend or not. So once you take stock of who, what, and where is consuming your time, I think that's a good building block for you to kind of get the ball rolling and try to unfuck whatever it is that's at the underlying issue of why you're consuming drugs and or alcohol at such a problematic rate. Because it's not normal to just continuously put drugs and alcohol in your system and continue to have adverse effects and continue. There's a part of your brain thinking, yes, this is going to be different this time. Yes, this is going to be different this time. In AA, it's referred to as a disease. I know that's a touchy point for some people. I don't know if it's a disease. I just know that there's underlying issues which contributed to me drinking and drugging to excess. I think for me, in doing the step work, I was able to realize that the factors that most contributed to me drinking and drugging to excess were that I had very low self-esteem. I'm anxious 24/7. I, at the time, had no idea who the fuck I was, so drugs and alcohol gave me a personality and allowed me to be what my interpretation of normal was. And aside from that, it's like I'm trying to be likable. With all this shit, it's like so much of this shit boiled down to likability for me, because drugs and alcohol, in my perception, allowed me to be really likable, because there were long times where like I had long stretches where I just didn't have any fucking friends. I didn't get a girlfriend until I was fucking 21. So this feeling of just being unlikable and unlovable was so pervasive that I felt like, okay, if I take all this stuff, it's going to increase my value to those around me and make people like me. So those factors were probably the biggest ones that I realized, which contributed to me wanting to do this shit. And even at the times where I didn't want to do this shit, but I still ended up doing it, that perpetuated this fucked up cycle of just taking in all this shit that just constantly fucked me, fucked my family, just fucked everything around me, and dug me deeper into loserdom than I had ever perceived that I'd fucking go. So once you start to unpack all of this shit, once you pick out like a course of action that you want to go, AA, smart recovery, people choose moderation programs, that doesn't work for me, because I know like once I have 2 beers, I go fucking zero to cocaine quicker than anybody on this fucking planet. I don't think moderation's ever going to be in the cards for me. For some people it is. Those options are out there too. There's programs based upon learning to drink responsibly. For me, that's not on the table, but there are a lot of different options out there. I think the main takeaway is that if drugs and alcohol are fucking you up, find a way to take some kind of definitive action towards making progress. It's got to be on a consistent basis too, because the less consistent you are, the higher the chances are that you're going to fucking relapse, and then relapses just get worse over time. They don't get any fucking easier as you get older. Hangovers become multi-day hangovers. You're alienating more and more people. You're digging yourself deeper into a hole. Your reputation takes a fucking nosedive. It just gets worse and worse and worse. Once you have some kind of consistent action determined, I'd recommend becoming more aware of how in your own way you become. For me, I was somebody who always got in my own way. Anytime I started to make progress in any area of my life, I would completely fuck up just whatever it was that was going good. And I don't know why that was, but I just could not get the fuck out of my own way. Now, once I learned to get the fuck out of my own way, shit inevitably got 1,000 times easier, and it allowed me to really address what the true issues were without thinking like, oh, can I do this? Oh, am I going to fuck this up? No, I got out of my own way and inevitably shit got better. And I think if you do that too, you're just going to expedite your progress. In regards to progress, you need to acknowledge all progress too. Once you're able to get the fuck out of your own way, any bit of progress you have needs to be documented, and you need to recognize it. If you're getting fucked up every day and then you're trying to get sober and then you're only getting fucked up every other day, that's progress. You need to view it that way. View it objectively, because there's so much morality injected into addiction that it's easy to be like, oh, I'm such a piece of shit, I can never get this right. It's like, no, you have to look at this almost scientifically. You have to look at shit objectively and just think that like, all right, I'm getting fucked up every day. I made an honest effort. Now I'm only getting fucked up every other day. Still not ideal, but it is fucking progress. So anytime you make any degree of progress that way, anytime you're just like, okay, if I typically go to the bar every fucking night, I'm just not going to go tonight. That's fucking progress. You need to recognize that and just give yourself credit, because this shit is not easy. This is going to take some time to undo. The good news is I feel like it can, for me, within a few years of being sober, I felt like my life had turned around. And there was so much to fucking turn around. I had felt like I was my own worst enemy. I felt like the biggest fucking loser on the planet. And all of my behaviors and everything and all of the circumstances of my life would not create a compelling argument that I wasn't that big of a fucking loser. So once I got out of my own way and I started acknowledging progress, things started to change. So I promise you, if you make an honest effort at this, things can turn around in a relatively short amount of time. And one thing that I really want to fucking hammer home is that when you give up this shit, like if you're giving up fucking alcohol, giving up whatever it is, initially you might feel like you're denying yourself something. The reality of the situation is that like you're giving yourself your life back. You're not. Yeah, it's like, all right, initially you're gonna be like, oh man, why can't I drink? Everybody else is fucking drinking. I can't go to a fucking game and have a beer. Look, what do you fucking want out of life? If you truly want a better version of yourself and to be better for the people around you, please understand you're not denying yourself by not drinking, not doing painkillers, not doing coke. There's truly no loss in not doing that shit. You're giving yourself your life back. So please recognize that. Every time that little thought pops in your head that I'm denying myself something, fuck that. You're giving yourself a shot to be the best version of yourself. You deserve that, and everybody else in your orbit deserves that too. So please keep that in mind. And there's a million different things I want to touch on, but I'm going to wrap this up with this. But please know that there's so much more on the other side of what you're experiencing right now. I know the depths that this shit can take you. I know how lonely it is. I know how fucking isolating it is. I know how people look at you, how people fucking treat you. And on one hand, it's like, yeah, we are, as people that are addicts with this shit, we are making the conscious decision to do this to ourselves. On the other hand, there's probably some underlying issues which are making that happen. And in a lot of those cases, you're not to blame for those underlying issues. So please be patient with yourself and know there's one trick that I did was that I would fucking, at the times where it was hard to like find like internal motivation to do this shit for myself or do it for the people around me, one thing that I would picture is the little version of myself. Like I would be driving and just thinking about drinking or fucking thinking about getting some coke. And one of the things that was helpful for me was just the small version of Mike, because that was like the kid that was scared to do anything, that was fucking scared of everything, that was fucking, yelled at for little shit, that was like, unless I was just standing still next to my fucking mother, there was always something that I felt like I was going to get fucking yelled at about, or that, I was afraid to fucking try things. I was just afraid all the fucking time. So in those times where it was hard to find any motivation to fucking upgrade myself and to do what I needed to do, I have that little version of myself next to me. Like I would literally picture a fucking 4 or 5 year old version of myself in the car seat next to me, because that little motherfucker deserve to be the version of myself that I've become today. So there's a million little things. It's like, if you don't have if you don't have a significant other, if you don't have kids, if you don't have parents or fucking friends to motivate you to do this shit, like, do this for the fucking person that's deserved it at various points in your life. You deserve it fucking right now. But if you can't do that, I think everybody else has enough soft spot in their fucking hearts to fucking do it for somebody smaller than them. Do it for a kid. And it's like, a lot of times fucked up shit happens to us as kids, which ends up parlaying itself into fucking addiction. You're not responsible for that shit. However, please use that as motivation to help get you to where you need to be, because, that little motherfucker, that's still inside of you. And like, that little motherfucker deserves to experience all the things that you're going to experience on the other side of this shit. And I promise you, there's so much good stuff on the other side of this shit. I could not fathom all the fucking good things that have happened to me as a result of being committed to giving up booze, coke, and fucking painkillers, because those things, they were going to kill me inevitably. There's no doubt in my mind that if I didn't take the steps that I did to address the situation, and as far as my motivation, if I didn't have my fucking wife, there's no chance that I would have ever gotten my shit together. And to be able to be at a point where I am now, where not only having like the physical things that I have, which is a place that I want to live, in a city where I want to live. If my family needs something, I got them. It's not a fucking question. If somebody needs fucking shit for school, I got it. If somebody needs a fucking bill paid, I fucking got it. That wasn't the case for a long period of fucking time, and I felt like a fucking loser because of that. Now, it's never a question. I fucking got it no matter what the fuck it is. And that goes for people relying on me. It goes for me doing shit that I need to fucking do. I don't feel like there's nothing I can't fucking do. And if the version of me from 10 years ago could hear me fucking saying that, he would shit his fucking pants, because it was incomprehensible. But it's almost entirely attributable to my decision to give all that shit up and to fucking get my shit together, to leave alcohol, painkillers, and coke in the dust. It's incomprehensible, all of the good shit that has happened in just leaving that shit behind. And like I said, you're not denying yourself anything by leaving that shit in the dust. Like, you're giving yourself your fucking life back. And you deserve to feel that. And everybody in your life that cares about you and loves you deserves that version of you too. So listen, hit me up anytime. Like, I'm available. There's times where it's like, if I have too many messages, it can be hard for me to get back. But I promise you that if I'm looking at my phone and your message comes through and I see that you're asking for something, some kind of insight, if you think you're going through something that I might be able to help with, I'm always going to get back to you. There's times where like I get buried in messages and I might not be able to get back to you, but I promise you, if I see your fucking message and you're asking me for something and you're struggling with this shit, I'm going to fucking get back to you. All right? I know how fucked up this shit is, but I'm telling you, you can turn this shit around. There's people out there willing to support you. Complete strangers will come out of the fucking woodwork to help you in ways that you could have never foreseen. And it truly is. It feels like a fucking miracle to be in a position to say that I left this shit in the dust, because there was such a long time where I didn't think that was ever going to be fucking possible. It's fucking insane to me that booze, that fucking coke, and fucking pills are no longer a part of my life, because I was just fucking lost. With each of those three things separately, with each of those things together, it was just on an island with no fucking help seemingly in sight. However, all of that fucking turned around with fucking taking one fucking step to just fucking get my shit together. And it started for me by going to a 12-step meeting. There's other options out there, but please, if this shit's fucking you up, it doesn't have to be this way. Just start taking some kind of action. Hit me up if you want to. And I love you guys. And I'm going to do more of these. I want to do more detailed ones and just try to take one specific topic and expound upon that for each of these episodes. But right now, I just wanted to give a general overview and just talk to you fucking guys. And just, please just know, no matter how fucking bad this shit seems right now, I promise you, you can unfuck so much of this. Become the idealized version of yourself by leaving this shit in the dust. It is fucking possible. Listen, I'll wipe my ass with my hand and lick it clean if you don't, if you make an honest effort and don't make it progress. I feel like it's a tough way to end this video, man. I feel like everything was so sweet up to this point, but I swear to fucking God, make an honest effort at this shit, and I promise you the best fucking things are possible. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.